This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 61. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
New at 6, while the nation focuses on COVID-19, a silent pandemic is brewing right here in Georgia.
Researchers at the University of Georgia have found a gene that causes resistance to one of the most important antibiotics in the world. CBS 46 anchor Tracy Hutchins has a closer look at why researchers are sounding the alarm.
Well, Sean and Rick, they certainly are. And I do want to make clear, this gene recently found is bacterial, so it doesn't have anything to do with the COVID-19 virus. But think about everything else you need antibiotics for, like a sinus infection or a skin condition. If this gene were in your body, even the crucial last resort antibiotic couldn't fight it off. Lurking in Georgia's sewer water is a gene at the center of the world's silent pandemic. It was discovered by University of Georgia researcher Ismat Kasem. He tells me the MCR9 gene causes bacteria to be resistant to one of the world's most important antibiotics.
When other antibiotics fail, we resort to colistin, and colistin should take care of the problem. However, if the bacterium has this gene that we have detected in the sewer water, then colistin will not be able to kill the bacteria.
Antibiotics are used to treat infections, everything from cuts and wounds to surgeries. Kasem is concerned about the MCR9 gene because it doesn't just go from human to human, it can jump into anything and everything.
With these, you can get them from the environment, you can get them from the food. So if you're working in your garden, you can get an antibiotic-resistant infection. We got here because we overused and misused those drugs in human medicine and in agriculture.
Kasem tells me the only way to solve the problem of antibiotic-resistant genes and stop them is if the effort involves everyone.
We're talking about medical doctors not to overprescribe unnecessarily the antibiotics, the patients themselves not to ask their doctors to prescribe the antibiotics, agriculture to be very prudent in using those antibiotics.
Yes, also that agriculture industry as well. Well, the most recent study by the Atlanta-based CDC reveals the U.S. has 2.8 million antibiotic-resistant infections every year, and around 35,000 people die from them. Rick?
Science has a way of snowballing. One discovery can lead to another. Years of discoveries led to our COVID vaccines, but what might those lead to? Last May, Dr. Anthony Fauci told me that it could help fight another virus that defined much of his career.
It goes both ways, Joshua. In fact, the work on the structural biology and the structure-based vaccine design, working for years on an HIV vaccine, was extremely helpful in us getting a vaccine for SARS-CoV-2. Going back in the other direction, the platform technology for vaccines, the mRNA particularly, that proved to be beyond our expectations successful, we're going to start using that platform technology in HIV. So one is helping the other back and forth.
Turns out Dr. Fauci was right. Yesterday, Moderna began clinical trials for an HIV vaccine. It developed the shot with the nonprofit International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. Like the COVID vaccine, it uses mRNA technology to teach our cells how to fight HIV. Joining us now is Dr. Robert Fullilove. He's a professor of sociomedical sciences and associate dean of community and minority affairs at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health. Dr. Fullilove, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here.
This would be a huge deal if this vaccine works. Talk about how significant this would be. In a way, it feels like kind of the holy grail of HIV prevention for the entirety of this pandemic.
When Margaret Heckler in 1985 announced to the American public that we found the bug that was causing AIDS, it was HIV, one of the things she promised was that in a very short space of time, we would have both a cure and a vaccine. That was 1985. Here we are in 2022, and it's finally happened. But it took a long time, and you're right, it was a technology developed for another virus that produced the miracle that we're seeing right now.
Professor, can you explain for us in very simple layman's terms what it is about this mRNA technology that makes it potentially applicable to fighting HIV?
This technology, let's be simple about it, is one that creates a set of proteins that very much look like HIV to our immune system. It is going to produce a set of proteins that will have less of the genetic structure of HIV, so it can't cause an infection, it can't cause illness, but it will provoke an immune response. The immune system will look at what it thinks is an HIV cell, and it will start to attack it. And if this vaccine is successful, it will eliminate it and prevent the vaccine. The vaccine will prevent the virus from developing into the end stage of HIV disease, which is AIDS. So it's a big deal. We've been waiting for it for many, many years. In the 40th anniversary year of our discovery of HIV, we finally have something that looks like an answer.
Now, I want to be clear, this as a vaccine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a vaccine, it sounds like it would be useful for people who are HIV negative, but if you're already HIV positive, we would have to find other interventions, although we do have strong medicines that are able to basically make HIV undetectable. So this would be more about preventing people from becoming HIV positive rather than treating people who are positive.
That's correct. It's a prevention measure. It's not a treatment measure. We have some very active antiretroviral medications that are quite effective. They've been around since the 1990s. We will continue to use these, but we still average about 35 to 38,000 new cases of HIV every year. We're really targeting that as our most important mission here, to reduce the number of new cases and hopefully in my lifetime see the elimination of HIV altogether from the human family.
Professor, how would you want to see this vaccine deployed? I feel like there are so many things about the fight against HIV, so many preventive methods that people don't know to this day, like things like PrEP, taking the daily medications, either Truvada or Descovy, to prevent HIV infection. I know a lot of gay men who have no idea that PrEP exists and it's been around for years. So it feels like even with the interventions we have, there's a lot of educating to do.
There's a lot of educating to do, and clinically, it's very complicated. PrEP is not easy. You take a pill, but you have to take it at a certain time. We have to be really clear that it's present in your blood. We have to make sure, in other words, that its levels are effective to prevent HIV, if it enters, from creating an infection that's going to be problematic. What we're talking about now is a simple shot. It's an injection. It's very much like vaccines that we're already accustomed to taking. And now that we're in the era of COVID-19, where for all of us, vaccines have become a part of life, adding this vaccine to the list means I think that we'll be doing something that we're already accustomed to doing. And for folk who are at risk of getting an HIV infection, this really does mean that we're about to enter a new day.
Before I have to let you go, Professor, suppose this vaccine works, suppose it clears all the clinical trials, gets approved, goes on the market. Where would you like to see outreach for this vaccine targeted first?
Well, clearly in the communities that have been hardest hit historically by this particular virus. I'm talking specifically about men who have sex with men. I'm talking specifically about folk who live in marginalized communities, communities that are characterized by racial segregation. These are the places where we see the highest concentration of infection, and this would be the location for, I hope, what will be a very impassioned effort to make sure that this vaccine is distributed, that it is successful, that people accept it, and that it becomes exactly what we're hoping for, the dawn of a new day.
Dr. Robert Fullilove, I appreciate you making time for us, sir. Thank you very much.
I want to say all praise Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone who rule well, and all the Akim laboring in the work, pushing out the truth. All right, so you've seen the videos. You got this new bacteria that was discovered. It's a gene, actually. It's a gene that was discovered within a bacteria that was discovered in Georgia. And now you got this variant of HIV, which is basically super HIV. You know, all these things are plagues. You know, these are the plagues and sicknesses and diseases that the Most High said he would send up on the earth. But What I want to do is read a few articles, just get a little bit more understanding and a little bit more edification. We'll hit a few scriptures. I'm not trying to make this lesson long at all, but I just really want to bring this information out. So this article is dealing with the first video, and it says, this is from UGA Today. This is gene discovered in Georgia water, a possible global threat. So let's read. All right, it says a gene that causes bacteria to be resistant to one of the world's most important antibiotics, colistin, has been detected in sewer water in Georgia. Now, this was found in Georgia, but it's going to make I'll go ahead and mention it now. Basically, they're going to mention in the article, they just so happened to find this gene within this bacteria. They weren't testing for it, which raises the question, where else is this bacteria? It just happened to be found in Georgia. Continuing with the first paragraph, it says, the presence of the MCR9 gene is a major concern for public health because it causes antimicrobial resistance, a problem that the World Health Organization has declared one of the top 10 global public health threats facing humanity. And when something has antimicrobial resistance, this is dealing with bacteria. You have basically two forms of infections. You have a viral infection or a bacterial infection. And I'm not no scientist or anything like that. I'm just giving you a little information. You can typically fight bacteria with medications. Typically viruses, you can treat the viruses, but they have to run their course. They typically run their course. Bacteria, however, can be fought, and one of the most powerful or last resort antibiotics is that colistin, but they're going to explain further on down. All right, so research from the University of Georgia's Center for Food and Safety collected sewage water from an urban setting in Georgia to test for the MCR gene and naturally present bacteria. Led by College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences Assistant Professor Ismat Qasim, whose research focuses on MCR's MCR's presence around the world. The team was surprised at how quickly they detected MCR. They found evidence of the gene in the first sample they took. Now, also want to make this point. This gene was found in a sewer. They were collecting samples from sewage. Now, these sewage systems, pretty much how they work, you have your communities, they have houses, and all these houses have pipes that go downward into the ground, and they all feed into a large water main. That water main is then fed to an even larger water main as it moves further and further away from the city. And then they have a big main that leads all the way to the water treatment plant. Typically what happens, that water gets to the water treatment plant. They treat the water to remove as many as the harmful chemicals as they can, and then that water is pushed, the clean water, the supposedly clean water, is pushed back into the ocean, lakes, depending on how big the lakes are or whatever. Now, what you have to understand is when there's flooding, those water mains cannot contain all of that water, that runoff. So they push all of it into the seas or the oceans. Also, you have flooding within neighborhoods. So those sewers, they overflow, and those bacteria, they seep into the ground. They seep into ponds. They seep into lakes. Things that people fish out of, things that animals inhabit. So this bacteria has many avenues of travel. Not to mention, even without flooding, you have animals that live in sewers, specifically rats and roaches. You have other animals, but those are the two main the two highest potential for carrying different diseases. So this is something you have to understand. You know, when the Most High says he's going to bring floods on the earth, it ain't just, it's so many aspects to that. When the Most High says he's going to bring plagues on the earth, it's so many aspects and so many dynamics to it. This is just how bad the Most High is. And all these things are popping up. Let's read this paragraph again. I don't want to, do too much rambling myself. Researchers from the University of Georgia Center for Food Safety collected sewage water from an urban setting in Georgia to test for the MCR gene and naturally present bacteria. Led by College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences Assistant Professor Ismat Qasim, whose research focuses on MCR's presence around the world. The team was surprised at how quickly they detected MCR. That had to mean, they didn't have to do no extensive searching for it. That means it was already present, so that means there were high levels of it. It's out there. They found evidence of the gene in the first sample they took. Let me scroll up. Qasim said that demonstrates that the gene is becoming established in the U.S. The bacteria where the gene was found, Morganella morgani, added further concern for Qasim. This marked the first time that MCR was found in M. morgani, which is problematic because it is a bacteria not often tested by researchers. This means that the problem could be considerably more widespread than initially thought. And again, this is a gene in a bacteria. This gene causes the bacteria to be antibacterial resistant, meaning when you get an infection from a bacteria that has this particular gene, antibiotics are not going to work. Let's continue reading on down. The spread of MCR in agriculture, imports, travel. It was previously believed that agriculture was a driving factor in the spread of MCR. Nations such as China and India use the colistin antibiotic in livestock. Colistin is considered a last resort antibiotic because it can kill infections that other antibiotics cannot. Its frequent use means that some bacteria are becoming resistant to it. This means that if people or animals contract a strain of colistin resistant bacteria, there are potentially no medications that can treat their infection. They face extreme invasive health measures and possible death. So that's the significance of just how potentially devastating this can be. So the gene is in the bacteria. It's obviously established. It's just a matter of time, and these are just another sign of the times. The Most High said he was going to send plagues and rumors of wars and earthquakes in diverse places. And we're going to get those scriptures. They've been coming out more and more these last days. And we'll get a little bit. Let's jump down right here. We could just read this. It's all for edification anyway. Colistin is banned in the U.S. for use in food animals, as it was previously thought that this measure would help slow the spread of antimicrobial resistance to colistin in the country. However, MCR can be spread through global travel and the import of foods from other countries. Results of the CFS study prove that the U.S. is no less susceptible to the threat than other nations around the world. Further complicating the issue is the way that the gene is spread. It transmits in plasmids, which are strands of DNA found inside cells that can replicate on their own independent of the cell. A plasma with antimicrobial resistance found in one type of bacteria can transmit to other types of bacteria. This means that bacteria like E. coli, Salmonella, that commonly cause outbreaks in humans can potentially carry MCR, turning them from treatable illnesses to potentially deadly infections. This is how serious this is. This is a serious matter. Now, this article came out, I think, a month ago. I had saved it, and I was planning on doing a lesson on it. But other things come about. Then the article came back out last week, and I said, you know what? I saved it again. I said, I'm gonna go ahead and do a lesson on this. Anyway, so let's jump down to this paragraph. How worried should we be about the MCR9 gene? Kasim said that taken all together, the global threat of antimicrobial resistance, the presence of MCR in Georgia, that it was found inside a a bacterium that is often overlooked, and that's the point I was making before. The gene, they're aware of the gene, but the bacteria that they found it in is not something they were looking for. That it was found inside a bacterium that is often overlooked, and that it occurred even without the use of colistin in U.S. agriculture is a serious problem that requires immediate action on the part of many industries, including research, healthcare, and government, to work together toward a solution. Now, put all this together. So you got World War III on the horizon. Before the actual nukes start flying, it's going to be a war. Those wars cause different effects on various economies, whether that's food supply, gas supply, workers. So the level of maintenance to try to contain something like this is going to be very, very low. Plus, it's the Most High's will. He's making these things come about. We bring these scriptures out, and we filter what's going on through the world through them. Because if you take an article like this and just look at it on as an isolated incident, it may not sink home with you. But all these things are taking place. And then you got super AIDS out now. I'm gonna do a little reading on that. If we don't tackle it right now, we are jeopardizing human and animal medicine as we know it, and that can have huge repercussions on health and the economy. And further mentioning, what about agriculture? What about farming? So these things don't just affect the people, they affect the whole ecosystem. The farm animals, cows, chickens, you got other animals, most of them, I was going to say, the pork industry, but you shouldn't be eating pork any damn way. But pigs, those farm animals, they still live together. Relatively, they may not be housed together. Sheep, lamb, turkey. All right. If we don't tackle it right now, we are jeopardizing human and animal medicine as we know it. And that can have huge repercussions on health and the economy, Kasim said. It's a dangerous problem that requires attention from multiple sectors for use to be able to tackle it properly. And say they start to devote, massive attention to this, like the current pestilence that's in the world. What measures are they going to take for this? Because this is potentially more deadly than the thing that's going on right now. So what measures would they take? These are things you got to keep in mind. Because of its urgency, findings from the research were printed in short format manuscript out now in the Journal of Global Antimicrobial Resistance. It was funded through a CFS grant, and other researchers involved were, I ain't gonna read all these names. And that's pretty much the point on that. So this is, this new gene that was found in a bacteria in Georgia. Something to keep in mind. Now, dealing with this super HIV, the video we watched, they more or less were speaking about the potential of I got to use my words carefully because they take these videos down when you say the wrong thing. But you see the last word in this title. So they're saying that Moderna starts clinical trials for HIV in the last word. Now, when you saw the video, You got the same players. You know who he is. Same guy. And it's no coincidence. Here it is. This virus, HIV, which is man created. You know, they fed us this bullshit when we was younger that, you know, man contracted it from monkeys, which is bullshit. You know, just like Dave Chappelle said in one of his comedy shows. I can't remember how he said it. For real? That's the best y'all got? Never mind, they created this shit. Didn't have any vaccine for it. Now, all of a sudden, they potentially have one due to the advances and their study from the thing that's going on right now. And again, who do they want to push it to? They want to push it to the underprivileged communities, the racially compromised, or however they termed it. You know who they want to push it to. That's you Jakes, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Underserved communities, underprivileged communities, or however they word it. They want to push it out on you. And it's no coincidence that all of a sudden this thing popped up. You typically get, they told you the ways that you typically get HIV. You know, it's typically through what? Sexual intercourse. It's a bloodborne pathogen, which means you have to have a blood or fluid transmission. So either sexual intercourse or sharing needles. Now you make the connection. So let's read a little bit about this super AIDS, super HIV. And of course, you know, HIV means human immunodeficiency virus. So all it is your immune system being compromised. And you've been hearing a lot of research about what's going on right now, also compromising the immune system. It's your immune system being unable or inefficient at protecting yourself against infections. Now, I'm gonna tell you something that you need to bring home. It ain't nothing deep, but you just need to understand. People can die from bacterial infections. That's what it is. When your body can't fight infections, normal infections, whether it's a virus or bacterial. Now, if your immune is compromised, and now you have bacteria that can't even be treated with current medications. You got this new gene that's antibacterial resistance, or I can't say the word right now. Matter of fact, let me go here. If I see the word, I can say it. Antimicrobial resistance. There we go. So you got this bacteria that is antimicrobial resistance. How much more will your immune system be able to fight? So just some things to keep in mind. All right, so let's read a little bit of this. It says an international research team has identified a highly virulent and infectious strand of HIV that likely began circulating in the Netherlands in the 1990s and has infected more than 100 people. Now, I was gonna say something about that. You could take that number. You could believe that number or not believe that number. When I say number, that year, you could believe that year or you could not believe that year. Why is it just coming out now? You know, I got to be careful with how I word things. They don't want anybody thinking, you know, contrary to the narrative that they push out. But anyway, left untreated, this viral strand leads to a much higher level of virus in the blood and a doubled rate of decline in key immune cells compared with the typical HIV disease progression. The research team, led by scientists at the University of Oxford, with key contributions from stitching HIV monitoring in Amsterdam, has stressed that these findings are not cause for alarm. This particular HIV strand responds well to antiretroviral treatment, which has the added benefit of blocking transmission. While the strain could still be transmitted to new people, once someone with the strain starts treatment, it is not associated with an increased risk of illness or death. So basically their reasoning is it's not a cause for alarm because it can still be treated, but it's something to pay attention to because it is more infectious, and also it affects the blood or affects the immune system stronger than the typical HIV. But what they're saying is once it's detected, it can be treated basically the same. Dr. Douglas D. Richmond, clinical virologist at the University of California, San Diego, who was not involved with the study, praised the new paper, published Thursday in Science, as the first compelling description of an HIV variant that appears to be more virulent. The most important take-home lesson is it's not like a new Omicron variant here, and that we're going to have a new wave of some terrible problem, Richmond said. Well, that's what they're saying. Michael Emmerman, a virologist at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, nevertheless expressed concern about the paper's potential impact on the popular imagination, anticipating that it's going to be interpreted that there's a deadly super HIV strain. Well, how else would you interpret it? There is precedent for how communicating about the HIV epidemic can cause needless public panic. And I don't think I'm going to read any of this. You can read all this if you want to. This was another article pretty much going over the same thing, and I just wanted to get maybe a paragraph or two out of here. So this is from the Oxford United Kingdom studyfinds.org. A more aggressive HIV strand that can cause patients to develop AIDS twice as fast has been discovered in the Netherlands. And that's what I was really trying to say. It's more infectious and it affects the immune system faster than HIV, which they tell you HIV leads to AIDS. So AIDS or HIV is human immunodeficiency virus, and AIDS is autoimmune deficiency syndrome. So this new strain will, allow people to develop AIDS twice as fast. So it's the same thing though. It's the weakening of your immune system at a faster rate. The new variant is highly virulent and potentially lethal without early detection. So that's the main thing there. So basically they're saying, come get tested. If you get tested and it's detected, it can be treated just like, normal HIV or normal AIDS. But without that early treatment, it becomes more lethal. The new variant is highly virulent and potentially lethal without early detection. According to researchers from the University of Oxford, individuals with an HIV infection need quick treatment before the virus can ravage their immune system. Scientists call this variant VB, virulent subtype B, and add that it may also have implications for, you see the word here, since continuous mutations keep fueling the ongoing pandemic. Let me see. For many years, there have been concerns this could arise in HIV, and the new study appears to confirm this possibility. The AIDS-causing virus affected 38 million people worldwide and has claimed 33 million lives. Before this study, the genetics of the HIV virus were known to be relevant for virulence, implying that the evolution of a new variant could change its impact on health. Discovery of the VB variant demonstrated this, providing a rare example of the risks posed by viral virulence evolution, says lead author Dr. Chris Weidman in a media release. So again, I think I'm gonna stop right there, but what he said, you got to think about that. So basically they're saying when AIDS and HIV, first hit the scene, supposedly when they first hit the scene, And through the years, one of the things they've been, worried about or concerned about was if HIV or AIDS, that virus itself, would have the potential to mutate. And they're saying it correlates with what's going on right now, because as we seen that what's going on right now has the ability to mutate. Now that they found this new strain, it has confirmed what they were, wondering or concerned about previously, dealing with HIV and AIDS. But it's coincidental, if you got any type of thinking, it's coincidental that now it's starting to mutate. But I gotta keep it simple. It's just something for you to read. It's just information to be brought out for you to read. So you got this new gene. That's found in bacteria. It was found in Georgia, but it's not something that's just specific to Georgia. It just happened to be found here, which is more than likely all over the United States, and it's already in different countries around the world. And then you got this more aggressive HIV strand that leads to AIDS twice as fast, supposedly discovered in Netherlands. Now, I did want to do a little edification, just so you have some understanding on bacterial infections versus viral infections, so how they differ. What's the difference between a bacterial infection and a viral infection? You might think bacteria infections are caused by bacteria and viral infections are caused by viruses. Perhaps the most important distinction between bacteria and viruses is that antibiotic drugs usually kill bacteria, but they aren't effective against viruses, and that's what I've stated before. Typically, they still have a great impact on you, but you can treat them. You just can't use antibiotic drugs on viruses, and typically antibiotic drugs, they kill bacteria. I mean, it takes a time, takes a little while. But now if you got bacteria with a gene that is resistant to microbial, that's antimicrobial, it's not going to be able to kill that bacteria, whatever that specific bacteria could be. And we read it could be E. coli, it could be salmonella, and I think they're gonna miss some. They're gonna list some down here. So let's continue reading. Bacteria are single-cell microorganisms that thrive in many different types of environments. Some varieties live in extremes of cold or heat. Others make their home in people's intestines, where they help digest food. Most bacteria cause no harm to people, but there are exceptions. Infections caused by bacteria include strep throat, tuberculosis, urinary tract infections. And one important thing about bacteria is that they are self-replicating. They can reproduce on their own, whereas a virus needs a host. Bacteria don't need a host. Inappropriate use of antibiotics has helped create bacterial diseases that are resistant to treatment with different types of antibiotic medications. All right, and viruses. Viruses are even smaller than bacteria and require living hosts. Salakia. Salakia, you start over. All right, so viruses. Viruses are even smaller than bacteria and require living hosts, such as people, plants, or animals, to multiply. Otherwise, they can't survive. When a virus enters your body, it invades some of your cells and take over the machinery, redirecting it to produce the virus. Diseases caused by viruses include chickenpox, AIDS, common colds. In some cases, it may be difficult to determine whether a bacterium or a virus is causing your symptoms. Many ailments such as pneumonia, meningitis, and diarrhea can be caused by either bacteria or viruses. That's why this information is important and pertinent to what's going on in the world. All right, so I'm just going to hit a few scriptures. Again, I'm not going to make it long. We're going to start back with Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 61. And again, I ain't going to make it long because the scriptures really speak for themselves. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 61. It says, also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. Now these curses were specific to the Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. This is just one of the many curses that we will be stricken with, you know. But as you know, the scriptures, all the curses, Salakia, all the curses will be turned to our enemies. So these curses still affect us, because you got 2/3 of our people that are still wicked. But these curses are also coming on our enemies, because the Most High is bringing these plagues upon the world. And these are things that were not written in the book. You didn't have AIDS back then, or HIV. You didn't have colistin resistant bacteria back then. You know, the word of the Most High is bad, man. Let's go to Jeremiah 28 verse 8. And this scripture has been coming out a lot. And it speaks right to the point. Verse 8, it says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. And that's what we've been doing. We've been prophesying against all these nations, not just Esau, Edom mainly, but all the nations. We've also been prophesying against our people, those that won't repent, that there's going to be great war, there's going to be great evil and great pestilence. And this is just the beginning. Wait till these things really start to break out. You're not going to be able to receive the treatment. You know, everything's going to be shut down. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be hell. This is hell. This is hell. But people going to be living hell on earth, and without these blinders that everything is all good. It's going to be a reality. It's going to sink in. Reality is going to sink in. So these are the things that the Most High said would be here, and pestilence are just diseases. Let's go to Matthew 24 and 6. And this is Yahweh Shah speaking. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And that's for the elect, the men that have faith. We're not troubled because, one, we know these things have to come. They have to take place. We know why they have to come, and we know the end of them. They have to come. It's a punishment for the nations. It's also a punishment for 2/3 of our people who don't want to repent. It's also to try those who have to see where our faith is at. You know, then we know what the end is. Ultimate destruction at the end. So we're not troubled by these things. And with that destruction, deliverance. Verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, and pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginnings of sorrow. So this is just the beginning. Pestilence. You know, same concept. So there's a point I wanted to get to. Let's go to Psalms. This is Psalm 64 verse 2. This is dealing with the second video we watched. You know, the article, the second video we watched with the potential of a vaccine for HIV, and the article we read. So, you know, taking consideration the things I mentioned as we read that article, you know, the coincidence that the vaccine is out now, the coincidence that this HIV variant, VB, has sprung out or come to the light now and now can mutate. Keep all these things in mind. We've been warning you about this, and I guess it's a shame we can't speak as clearly as we would like to, because they censor every damn thing. But this is Psalm 64 verse 2. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, because they create these things, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. These are the workers of iniquity. The secret counsel of the wicked is the wicked elite. And their words are hell bent on creating laws, creating mandates, you know, creating new devices to herd people into to herd the sheep for the slaughter. That's basically what they're doing. Verse 4, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. And the perfect are the Israelites, perfect in spirit. Verse 5, they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. They say, who shall see them? And why am I reading this? Because the potential for the HIV vaccine with this newly contagious variant of it, I'm going to read this again. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares. Those are traps. They commune of laying snares privately, secretly. They say, who shall see them? Verse 6, they search out iniquity. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. These are your sciences. Like the top level scientists. And scientists, they really ain't nothing but sorcerers. Sorcerers and witches and alchemists. You got to be able to see through the bullshit. You just went through, what, 2.5 years of lies. And those lies aren't going to stop. They're going to continue. So the lies on top of lies, on top of wars, on top of earthquakes and volcanoes, on top of new diseases. You know, all these things, you know, come about through the will of the Most High. But you do have people, these wicked people, these wicked elite, who are creating certain things to further lay these snares. You got to keep that in mind. So let's go to Micah chapter 2 verse 1. It says, woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And it's in the power of the hand, in their hand, to come up with these devices. And again, that second video, when they're talking about the potential for that, that's a device. You got to think about it. How did this new variant come about? It coincides with what was going on already. Now they want you to take something else. Here it is. You've been looking for treatment for HIV for years. We've been wondering for years why they can't come up with a cure for AIDS. Why they can't come up with a cure for AIDS? So it's the people who got it, supposedly got it. They're going to be treated the same, but now they got a vaccine for it. But this is what they do. They devise iniquity. They come up with these snares and these traps. Now, ultimately, the Most High is putting it in their spirit to create these things, to unleash these things upon the earth. You got some things that naturally happen, that naturally occur, and you also got these wicked people pushing these things out, creating certain things to control the people. But ultimately, it's of the Most High. So I'm gonna close it out on this. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, and we'll start at verse 4. It says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. Plagues or diseases. Your sword is the war. Famine is a lack of food, lack of supplies. Death and destruction speak for themselves. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So again, ultimately it's the Most High making this happen, making these things happen, bringing about these different plagues as He said He would. Again, some of these things are natural. Some of these things are created. You know, the things that's created, you should be able to see. The first video seemed like something that was natural or naturally occurring. Of course, it was the result of, antibacterial medication being dumped and overused. But it's something that would occur naturally, not something that was specifically created to control the masses of the people in one way or another. Unlike the second video, that's why we went to Psalms chapter 64 and Micah chapter 2 verse 1. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately the Most High bringing these plagues upon the world. Verse 6 again. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Therefore thus saith the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. The Most High said he ain't holding his tongue no more. Literally by having his men preach this word, because he speaks through his men. That's why the Spirit of the Most High has been so heavy on his men to bring this word out, prophesying against the nations. Prophesying of what? War, famine, pestilence, and destruction. And these things are happening. So the Most High is not holding his tongue no more. Prophesying against the nations, prophesying against 2/3 of our people, letting them know that judgment is about to come. Judgment is happening every day, but it's about to increase on a major level. Most High say he's not going to hold his tongue no more, because these people exercise their wickedness. These people exercise their wickedness boldly. And at the last sentence he says, behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. The innocent and righteous blood is talking about, those who have died in the faith. Because what did they do? Those who died in the faith, when they were alive, they did the same thing we were doing. Or Salaki, they did the same thing we're doing now. Complaining about this place, complaining about the wickedness of it, complaining about Esau, Edom, complaining about the nations, complaining about how 2/3 of our people want to continue in their wickedness. We get tired of seeing the shit that we see every day. We get tired of seeing the shit that we see on these commercials, hearing the shit that we hear in the music, or see on TV, or see when you go to a store, or driving down the road, or when you listening to the news. We tired of this fucking place. So we preach this word, but this is the only thing we have. This is the power that we have, but it's really the only thing we need, because the Most High's words don't go out void. Everything he said will happen is going to happen. So we preach what he said was going to happen. That's the power in the word. And you see these things are kicking up in the earth. You see what's going on around the world. Verse 9, and therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them. This is for us. So and we try to tell you Israelites, the Most High is bringing these plagues, these famines, these wars, this great death. Yes, it's a hard thing to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow, but ultimately it's for you. It's for the controversy of Zion. And he's angry. And Yahweh Shai is looking forward to the year of his redeemed. This is for you. And therefore saith, but mainly it's the elect, because again, you don't want to hear, you don't want to take heed. And therefore said the Lord, I will surely avenge them. So the Most High is going to avenge us for us crying out. And receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. Verse 10, behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. So that's why all these things are happening. The Most High said he's going to smite Egypt with plagues again. But it's these things, these plagues are worldwide. These wars are worldwide. These famines are worldwide. So really, I just wanted to bring that article out, just give me an opportunity to bring out some scriptures. I didn't want to make it long. But anyway, I hope that the lesson was edifying. I'm going to say all praise Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Akakwadash, and until next time, Shalom.